At long last, it's time to name my top 10 games of 2021. I would like to note that all 10 of these games, with one mild exception, were released for the first time on consoles in 2021. I would have loved to highlight the PS5 port of Final Fantasy VII Remake because that Yuffie DLC was a blast. Getting to play Scott Pilgrim again was also a treat, but restrictions are good, right? It helped me make a more fresh list. Stipulations aside, in order from 10 to 1, these were my favorite games from this year. Number 10 is Neo: The World Ends With You. It took over a decade, but The World Ends With You finally got a sequel. I was pumped and my expectations weren't blown out of the water, it was more of the same. The Japanese districts are iconic, but after repeating them in a time loop a bunch of times, their charm wore off. I was hoping for a more ambitious sequel, didn't get it, but still had a blast. I like the change to 3D combat and the bigger party. The music, like the original, was the true highlight. Number 9 is the great Ace Attorney Chronicles. Technically, both these games of the collection aren't new since the original came out on 3DS in 2015 and the sequel in 2017. This is the first time both were fully translated into English officially, so that's why it makes the cut and why Final Fantasy VII doesn't. The mysteries were enthralling, but the characters, as always, were the real draw. There were times when I legitimately laughed out loud. The main issue I had with both these games in the series overall is how long-winded they are. They could have been more concise, but both games still had me hooked on the whimsical and intriguing adventures. Number 8 is Loop Hero. There were some truly great roguelikes in 2021, and this somewhat late addition to the Switch is what hooked me in the most. It's also the simplest, since a lot of it works on autopilot. Even the graphics aren't that complex, since it is trying to emulate old PC titles in terms of style. Still, this was one loop that was hard to close for me. Addictive is not the right word. It became my life for a good spell, and I'm still playing it. Number 7 is Eastward. The visual style of Eastward alone had me in love after I watched that initial trailer in 2018. It looks like Earthbound, has the quirky characters and charm of Earthbound, but it plays more like a Zelda game, or maybe even Secret of Mana. It's action combat with light puzzle solving, okay? You get it. The combat was fine, a bit wonky without a lock-on, but fun enough. What I enjoyed most was just drinking up the world. It's just too gorgeous of a game to exist, and the story had me all in. On the verge of tears sometimes too. Number 6 is Monster Hunter Rise. Now, it was not as ambitious as Monster Hunter World. That was the first entry in the series that finally clicked with me. This game did surprise me though, in that many aspects were taken from Monster Hunter World, despite the game being a Switch exclusive. The environments may not have been as big or open, but they were still pretty seamless. I also love the old school Japanese aesthetic of everything from your hub village to the ninja cats. Like all games of the series, what I enjoyed most about Monster Hunter Rise was the multiplayer. Number 5, funnily enough, is Persona 5 Strikers. Now, I love the Dynasty Warriors spin-offs. It's a guilty pleasure favorite series of mine. I wasn't expecting this game to be a full-on sequel to Persona 5 though. The combat was super solid. It is without a doubt the best game the team has ever put together as far as original games or spin-offs go. Number 4 is Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy. It was a game I didn't expect a lot out of. It came from nowhere, and that initial trailer was odd. These weren't the faces of the MCU heroes I had grown to know and love. They looked and sounded weird, plus the jokes seemed a little too try-hard. Trailers can be deceiving because this game is actually pretty funny. I wasn't huge on playing as Peter alone, but at least you could issue commands to everyone else. It created some cool combos in combat. It was also more linear than I would have liked, but overall I think this first entry in what will probably become a franchise was pretty great. Number 3 is Resident Evil Village. Yes, how could the thirstiest game from 2021 not make it on my list? What surprised me most about Resident Evil Village was that Lady Dimitrescu was not in it much. She's the first boss. It was a sad day for the internet lusting for this Dami mommy. Anyway, yes, this game is great besides the tall lady. There was fun set pieces, great action, amazing characters, and so much more. I loved every second of it, and that final scene has my mind racing on where this series could go next. Number 2 is Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. It's been a while since the last game in the series launched. That was a remake of the original in 2016. I loved it, but after years of nothing, I thought the series was dead. While Rift Apart didn't do too much to reinvent the formula, it didn't need to. The platforming remained solid, the script funny, and the weapons were out of this world, literally. This really was an impressive PS5 game. It made me think, wow, okay, this PS5 was worth the purchase. Number 1 is a number 2, that's right, because it is Bravely Default 2. Now, I played a lot, like a lot of games in 2021. I easily nailed down my favorites, but among the 10, Bravely Default 2 going to number 1 was not something I thought would happen when I originally planned this whole thing out. It was a great sequel as a throwback to old school RPGs. The thing that really sold me was the job system. I 100%ed that game, which I rarely do nowadays since I am so busy covering so many games. It's not a brag, it's just a fact. If I had to score this entire list, some games may rank technically higher. Still, there's just something about Bravely Default 2 that compelled me to rank it as number 1. It's silly, I know, but making top 10 lists is supposed to be about feeling your gut. And for now, that is it. Thank you so much to everyone I've worked with on the gaming side of things for making 2021 another great year to remember. From developers to publishers to co-workers, thank you and have a very happy new year. Did you like that video? If you did, please like, subscribe, and spread the good word of ReActionExaminer. If you want to read more of my stuff, you can find a plethora of my articles over at TheGamer and Game Rant. All of those links and more are in the show notes below. Thanks for watching!